Hello everyone, my name is Alexis and welcome back to my Florist YouTube channel. So in today's video, we're going to be making a flower arrangement for beginners. We're going to be taking a bouquet that you would buy at a grocery store. We're going to break it down and we're going to make an arrangement using those flowers. Now, as you guys watch this video, make sure that you are designing along with me so that way you are getting the full lesson, you're getting the hands-on experience and the visual learning experience as well. As you watch my tutorials, if you find that I am talking a little too slow or you just kind of want to move by a certain part of the video a little bit faster, you can change the playback speed so I can go from talking really fast.
Or I can go from talking really slow.
So it's up to you. You can pick the speed in which you want to watch this video. So to get started, I'm just going to start by removing all of the plastic, the rubber bands, and just releasing some of these flowers because I'm not even really sure what's in this bouquet. I can only really see it from a surface level. So now I'm just going to be setting aside and grouping the flowers together based on like their types. So I'm putting all the daisies in one pile, roses in one pile, lilies in another.
A tip I recommend you do is to actually buy a separate bunch of greens. So I bought an additional bunch of Israeli ruscus because there usually isn't enough greens that come in the flower bunches when you buy them from the grocery store. So I always recommend to just buy like additional greens because greens are going to help give you structure. I'm honestly not really sure what this is, but this is really pretty and it kind of has like some orangey reddish tones to it, which I thought would be perfect for the fall.
So your next step is going to be to actually fill your vase with water. So today we're going to be using an 8-inch vase. I like this vase because this is like a standard vase that you would typically get flowers in. This is a good vase for like a dining room table, an end table. So this arrangement is going to be about 1 to 2 times the height of this vase. So whenever you're designing, you don't want your arrangement to be like super tall and then your container to be really small because that looks really unproportional. Wouldn't go any higher than this because anything higher than this is just going to look unproportional to the vase. So we're going to be designing a traditional style arrangement, something that is even and beautiful all the way around. We are not doing garden style today. This is not a garden style video. Today we'll be using traditional style flower arranging to make a beautiful all around arrangement. So before you begin flower arranging, you're going to want to start by adding a good base of greenery to your arrangement. The greens is going to give your arrangement structure and it's going to allow the other flowers to not move around. So I'm going to start by taking some of this Israeli ruscus and you are going to want to take off all of the leaves that are going to touch the water. You only want there to be stem in your vase. Leaves cause mold and bacteria to form in your water. Any leaves that are going to touch the water, I'm just going to pull those off. And I recommend to work with like some sort of bag or trash can you're used so that way you can just throw all of your debris just right into the bag. Easy cleanup for later. So I'm actually going to start by just removing some of the leaves off of my stems here just to make the grab and go process a little bit easier. So you can also just take your stem and see like, okay, like these leaves are going to touch the water. So I'm just going to pull those off. Alright guys, so now it's time to start adding some of these greenery and flowers into our vase. So we're going to start with adding the greens in first to give us structure. So I'm going to start with this Israeli ruscus here. And we are going to make the greens no taller than our hand. So when you measure the greens, you're going to take your hand, you're going to measure to the edge of the table here. So when you bring it to the edge of the table, from the edge of the table, you can see how much you need to cut off. So I know I need to cut off from here down if I want my greens to be as tall as my hand here. So I don't like making the greens taller than my hand because again, this is just the structure. You don't want the greens to be like all wild and crazy unless that's the type of arrangement you're going for. For today's arrangement, we are making an arrangement that is more even all the way around. This is going to be more balanced, traditional. It's going to be kind of like an ice cream cone. So there's going to be a top flower point and the rest is going to come down. I find that this is the easiest way to teach beginners. Take our hand, measure, And I'm gonna cut that much. Perfect. Now, whenever you're inserting your greens, you always want to insert them on a 45-degree angle. You want to make sure that your greens are facing out of your arrangement wide, and rather than inserting them straight down into the center, because that's going to make your arrangement more tall and narrow. So again, one more time, we're going to take our ruscus, we're going to measure, we're going to see how high. So this time we already have a piece in, so now I'm just going to measure that same height, so it's on the same height. At the edge of the table here, I know I need to cut off that much stem, so I'm going to snip that. And then we're going to work on the other side. So whatever we do to one side, we're going to mirror and do to the other side. So now I'm going to insert my greens on a 45-degree angle right into that vase. Perfect. So we're going to rotate a little bit because we want to have greens on all sides of our arrangement, guys. Remember, this is a traditional style arrangement, which means it needs to look good on all angles. So I'm going to measure that green. Got to cut off that much. Remember, guys, we're just going to remove all of those leaves from the bottom here. You really don't want there to be any leaves touching the water. So we're going to insert on that 45-degree angle. Great. And notice how all of the flowers are leaning out of the vase. That's good. That's what we want. Now we do still have this other greenery that I want to incorporate in here. I always like to incorporate at least 2 different types of greenery to give my arrangement some fun texture. So we're going to measure, and I'm going to pull off this bottom leaf because that is going to touch the water. Insert on that 45-degree angle and rotate. It's perfectly okay to take it one stem at a time. You're a beginner, and it's all right to just start out that way. Take it slow, take it steady. Move off those bottom leaves, throw those in the trash. Insert on that 45, rotate, measure, insert on that 45. I'm going to add one more piece in, but this time I'm going to add this piece in towards the center because I want to fill up this gap here. So now that we have the perimeter done, I'm just going to start adding greens towards the center of my arrangement here. And these greens, we're just going to insert straight down into the center. So no 45-degree angle, just straight down for these guys. We always want to make sure we're giving our greens, flowers, whatever we're putting into our vase, into a fresh chop. This is going to allow the flowers, the greens, to soak up fresh water. And this is what you should have so far. Just a good base of greens. I like to fill my vase up about, I would say 50 to 60% of the way of greens before I start adding any of my flowers. So now it's time to start adding some flowers into our vase. So I'm going to start by adding in all of the mums and daisies first. These are going to be our structure flowers, and this is going to help give the shape and design of our arrangement. So whenever I'm arranging flowers, I like to work in 3 layers. I have my first layer, my second layer, and then my top layer is simply just one flower that sits at the top like an ice cream cone. So when I'm designing a traditional style arrangement, we want it to be in the shape of an ice cream cone. So we're going to have a top center point, and then all the other flowers are going to come down from that point out wide. So this arrangement is going to be shaped like this, like a teardrop. For my first layer, I'm going to start adding in my daisies. We have these really pretty purple daisies today. And what we're going to be doing first, we're just going to be removing all of the leaves that are on the stem here because, like I said before, guys, leaves create bacteria and mold in the water, so you always want to make sure that you are taking off all of those leaves from your stem. So for our first layer, we're going to be inserting closer to the lip of the vase because we want our flowers to poof out of the sides. Adding the first layer right where my hand is, so within the bed of greens. We don't want this first layer to come higher than the greens, we want it to sit within the greens. So I'm gonna take my daisy. If I want my daisies to sit here, I'm gonna measure at the edge of the table. I know I need to cut off at least this much if I want my daisies to sit here in my arrangement. So I'm gonna snip. Okay, now as soon as you snip that flower, you wanna put it in water. So we're gonna insert it on a 45-degree angle closer to the lip of the vase. We're gonna stick that right there. So we're gonna take another daisy stem. This is actually a purple mum. And again, just gonna moving all of those leaves. Throw those in the trash. And now we're gonna be cutting this mum to be the same height as this daisy. So we're gonna take mum, measure. I know I need to cut off that much if I want him to be the same height as our daisy. Insert it on a 45-degree angle closer to the lip of the vase so that way our flower extends out of the vase like so. Okay. Now the benefit of doing and crisscrossing your flowers like this is so that way when you comes time to add other stems in, you're creating like a web in the vase and all of your stems are getting like interlocked in each other. So this is exactly what you want to do. You want to create a web and a grid in the vase. I also like to think of a traditional style arrangement like a compass. So we have our east and our west points. Now I want to create our north and south points. So we're going to start adding in these mums and daisies up top here to fill in these spots. These daisies are going to come a little bit higher and taller, and we're going to start working in our second layer. So these are our first layer of daisies. Now we're going to move up about an inch, and this is going to be where our second layer is going to be forming. So again, guys, we want this arrangement to bring to the top center here. We want it to kind of start to get a little bit more narrow as we come to the top. If I want him to be a little bit taller, I'm going to measure. Always want to cut off a little bit. Even if you don't have much to cut, just cut off like a teeny bit, guys. Now, as we get towards the top here, we can start inserting more down rather than on that 45. So we're going to be inserting straight down into the vase here. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. We're going to rotate that. Now on our other side, we're going to do the same thing. So we want this daisy to be as tall as this mum. We're going to insert him on this side to fill in that south gap. So I'm going to snip just a little bit, insert straight down into the vase. Okay, great. So second layer, first layer. So now that I have my daisies inserted into my vase, I'm going to add in my hydrangea next. Now this hydrangea is actually very tiny, so I'm going to place him towards like the bottom of my arrangement here on that first layer with these daisies and mums. These leaves are going to drink up all the water first, and they're not going to get to your flower. So make sure to just remove all those big giant leaves. Sometimes I keep on the tiny leaves that are up top, but this hydrangea is so tiny, so I just took off all the leaves on this one because I really want to make sure that this bloom is getting the water and not the leaves. And I'm going to add him in right here just because there's just a big empty space. So I determined that there was an empty space there because it is in between these two purple flowers. So wherever there are spaces in between the flowers is where I'm going to start adding in my focal flowers. So in between these two purple flowers, I'm going to add in my hydrangea, and I'm going to just measure it. If I want my hydrangea to sit here in my vase, I know I need to cut off at least that much stem. So we're going to measure, snip, insert on that 45-degree angle. Now guys, I'm only facing this way because the camera's this way, but definitely when you're arranging things that are like next to you, in front of you, rotate the vase and insert it in front of you like this. Okay, so I have this Sweet William that kind of looks like a hydrangea. It's kind of giving me the same essence of a hydrangea. So I'm gonna add this Sweet William on the other side of my arrangement, and I'm gonna treat it like a hydrangea. So I added my first green hydrangea low to the bottom, so I'm gonna do the same thing with this Sweet William. I'm gonna add him on the other side of my arrangement, also low to the bottom. So again, just remove all those leaves that are gonna touch the water there. leave on this little baby. Take your clippers, take your flower, measure. If I want my flower to sit on that first layer, I'm gonna measure him to the same height as my other first layer of flowers. I'm gonna insert on that diagonal angle because we're working on our first layer, so we want that first layer to come out wide. Here we go. So one side to the other side. So notice how we're always balancing one side of the arrangement to the other, because this is a traditional style arrangement, so we always want there to be balance on both ends. So next we're going to be adding in this beautiful lily here. So we're just going to be moving off all those leaves, taking off all those leaves. We just want the flower to drink the water, not the leaves. Now with lilies, you actually want to remove these little black centers here. So you just want to pluck those out. This is the pollen of the lily, so you just want to make sure that you're removing all those little pollen buds. So I want to place this lily on my second layer. So we're going to be placing this lily on the same height as these two daisies and mums right here. So I've got two spots that I could put the lily. I could put the lily in this empty space right in between these two flowers, or I could put it in this empty space right in between these two flowers. I think I'm going to stick him on this side. Got a lot of darkness on this side where the green hydrangea kind of lightens up this side a little bit. So I'm going to just add a little bit of color and brightness to this spot in my arrangement. So again, we want this lily to sit at the same height of these two daisies and mums. Now I would say that this is actually pretty much like the perfect height, but you always want to give your flowers a fresh chop before adding into your vase. So I'm just going to cut off a teeny amount. Like I literally just cut off that much, but you got to give your flowers a fresh chop. So you want to cut off a little bit, insert on a more like downward angle because we're coming in towards the top of our arrangement. And there you go. That's where I want the lily to sit. So because we have this big orange lily on one side, we got to put something on this side because we got to keep the balance going. So we still have some of these really pretty sunflowers here, and I actually have two of these. So we're going to insert both of these. But one thing when you're doing traditional style, you never want to cluster two flowers together. You always want to spread them out. So if I put one sunflower over here, I'm going to have to put something else over here just to keep going with the balance. So I'm going to add a sunflower right here on our second layer in between this daisy and this mum, because we added something to fill in this gap. Now we want to fill in the other gap on the other side. So I'm just going to cut off just a little bit, insert on that downward angle so we get that correct angle here. And there it is. So we've got 1, 2. Now we've got another sunflower. Now this time I'm just going to kind of rotate the vase and see where we have empty spots at. I've got an empty spot back here, and we want to make sure that we are distributing our flowers and our colors throughout our vase. So I'm going to place this other sunflower right here on the second layer. So I'm going to snip, measure, snip, insert. You should sing that song while you're arranging. Measure, snip, insert. Measure, snip, insert. All right, guys, so now that we have our main flowers in, it's time to add in our filler flower. So we have some of these really cool blooms that we're working with today. Got some Status, a little bit of Alstroemeria, some Solidago. So let's see where we can put this. Now, one thing about all of these is that they're all a little bit different, which is actually going to work in our favor. One thing I really want to think about is the distribution of the colors throughout the arrangement. I'm noticing that there's a lot of like oranges and yellows on this side, but then on this side of the arrangement, the only yellow thing we have is the sunflower. So on this side of the arrangement, I'm going to add some of this, and I want to just bring out some of that orange that we have on this side of the arrangement and bring that to the other side. So I've got a big spot right here that I could add in that orange flower, so that's what I'm going to do. So the filler flower is all about filling in the gaps. So when you think filler flower, think about all the gaps you could fill in, and that is where you're going to be placing and inserting those flowers at. Now the good thing about this status is that you can actually pull it apart and work with it in multiple sections. Sometimes I find that it's a little bit easier to work with it like that. So now I just kind of like to rotate my vase and see where I could put a little bit of color in. Like what area of my vase just needs a little bit of color. So I think for this status here, I'm gonna put him on this side of my vase here because I really don't have any flowers here. The only thing I have are these two daisies. So I just want to break up that a little bit and add in some of the status, give a little bit of a pop. So because that's on our first layer, I'm just going to insert that more on a 45-degree angle so it poofs the arrangement out like that. Now, whatever I do to one side, I'm just going to do to the other side. So I do have a couple more sprigs of this. So I'm just going to be mirroring that and adding this to the other side of my vase here. So just distributing that evenly throughout my vase here. Really thinking about the bottom here because we really want there to be flower on all ends. So really make sure you're considering like this bottom layer, the medium layers. I like to add in my rose last because as you're designing, it's kind of hard to add in your top center flower and then like you keep putting in flowers and your stuff keeps moving around. So I find that it's just easiest to add my top center flower right at the end. I'm noticing quite a large gap right here, so I think this alstroemeria is going to be perfect just to add in a little bit of color and also just fill in the holes that we see. So I'm just going to insert that straight down into the vase here. So now it's time to add in our rose. So I'm just going to be removing all of the leaves from our rose. And this rose actually does not have any thorns, but if you had thorns, you would just snip them off. So you could just lightly snip those off, but this rose like didn't have any. So for this final rose, we're just going to insert him directly in the center of our arrangement, straight down. Make sure to give him a nice little chop. And this is going to be the ice cream cone point to our arrangement. So this is going to be like the tippity top of our cone here. So if you are having trouble inserting, you can always wiggle and rotate the stem like this to kind of drill your way to the bottom here. Okay, I do have one more piece of solidago here. Just kind of looking for a spot to place this now. I think I'm actually going to place the solidago right next to this rose here. Insert him straight to the top here. I do have a couple of greens left. So wherever I see holes or space, I'm just gonna fill in with a little bit of greenery. So I noticed a little bit of space up top here. Just gonna add one more piece of greens there. Now is the time to adjust and make any final movements, adjustments, anything that is just out of place. Now is the time to move it. If you do need to adjust something, make sure you're pulling it all the way out of your vase and then reinserting it like so. I hope you guys enjoyed arranging this beginner-friendly arrangement with me today. I'm actually coming out with a floral design for beginners course. This will be in the beginning of 2025, so make sure you are subscribed to my email list below so you get notified when I upload and get that course ready to go. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in my next week's video. Bye!